Hey guys, what's up? It is week 476. I got a decent size update and a bunch of reviews, so let's jump right into this. And we're starting a box set this week. We're ending two, but the first one in this box set is actually Drunken Master 2. This is the Jackie Chan's breakout hits from Arrow Video. These are all 4Ks. Yeah, so these, Jackie Chan was an actor that I knew just before he came to the United States in name only. I was very young when Rumble in the Bronx got released here, and I do remember seeing that, and I remember digging it, and eventually the Rush Hour films, and Jackie became like this kind of a big star in the United States, but before that he had tons of great stuff in the 70s and 80s, working with Shaw Brothers, and eventually came over, got some bigger movies, Project A, Crime Story, Police Story, all that kind of stuff like that. But yeah, these are considered his breakout hits. Now, Drunken Master, the original, was made in 1978, and it was based on a martial artist kind of folk hero, Chinese folk hero kind of myth in Wong Fei. Once Upon a Time in China films were also based around this character or this person. But Drunken Master 2 is actually from 1994, so substantial amount of time later. It's got a really good cast. People will definitely recognize Tai Lung from a bunch of classic Shaw Brother films as well, and he had a kind of a renaissance in some of the the bullet ballet movies, or you say heroic bloodshed kind of films in the John Woo style. Later on, resurgence. But yeah, Tai Lung plays actually Jackie Chan's father here. So this is definitely kind of the classic kind of Chan style, where there's a lot of comedic and martial arts and adventure stuff. It's an amazing movie, and this is directed by when am I gonna mix up his name? Lar Wong Kong. I'm messing up. See, terrible pronunciation and remembering here. But this guy directed like Eighth Diagram Pole Fighter, tons of Shaw Brothers stuff, and he was a martial artist and actor himself. But there was obviously some turmoil during the filming of this. Obviously, the styles clashed, and Jackie Chan supposedly ended up taking over half this movie, according to all the the people involved and the people doing the special features. So, and it definitely tells. It does feel like a lot of the other Jackie Chan stuff I did see. But yeah, this is kind of an epic here in three different versions. You have the Hong Kong version, the international version, and is it an export or a United States version? So three different versions here. I actually went with the Hong Kong version. It's the longest version. It's in the Cantonese language, or is it Mandarin? But it's in the original language. I find the dubs on some of these are pretty painful. But yeah, so this one follows Wong Fei, who is a pretty damn good martial artist. He has some fights with local friends, kind of back and forth and things of that nature. And this takes a historical piece, of course, and at this time they're being taxed a lot. So in the very beginning of the film, they're trying to they're going to different countries, and they're bringing back ginseng because Tai Lung, his father, is actually a doctor. So Jackie Chan tries to sneak the ginseng by hiding it in someone's suitcase, and there's a classic kind of mistaken somebody gets the wrong bag, which is a storyline that I've seen a billion times. Hell, even in 1983 there's the Daggerizer, which is one that does the same storyline here. But of course, that means that a bunch of people are after said item. What happens is the film's director is actually the person who gets the wrong bag, and he has an ancient Chinese relic that is hugely symbolic and important to the Chinese people, and he takes the ginseng on accident. A lot of comedy stems from that, of course. The ginseng, they try to replace it, all that kind of stuff like that. But what eventually ends up happening is it kind of faces Jackie Chan as this drunken master who's kind of shunned off drinking because he's gotten himself in trouble with it and an embarrassment to his family and that nature. And he messes up time and time and time again, although he's trying to do the right thing and stand up to injustice. But eventually he has to stand up to the baddies. They're excellent bad guys here, and the lead kind of bad guy is this British gentleman, a foreigner, which is a comment that they even make in the movie when they sneak into the train in the beginning, which I love. Kind of reminds me of Millionaires Express with the train action and things like that. But he kind of sneaks into the train and he sees all these rich people, and he's like, must be rich, a lot of foreigners. And that kind of seems to be the kind of thing that was happening around this time, the historical kind of context here. And you'll see tons of movies. Shaw Brothers does it too, with a lot of these kind of different countries coming into China. And there's definitely a very comments being made about this kind of stuff in here. The action is amazing. It's playful, but it's brutal. And it's kind of that stuff that we love with Jackie Chan, right? Where he's doing a lot of his own stunts. You can tell it's him in a lot of places. Not all of them, but he takes a lot of bumps. Characters take a lot of bumps. And they kind of explain his style why it kind of went against the director's style. The director's more about the moves and the basically the stances and things of that. And the Tiger Claw, classic Shaw Brothers kind of style, right? Where they do, well, this is Tiger Claw, this is Eagle, all that kind of shit like that. But Jackie Chan's kind of style is, I get hit by this guy and you see how strong he is, and then I can come back and hit him back, and we kind of have this back and forth, like basically taking hits, and overcoming like the odds and things of that nature. I think that the best fight scene in the movie is when basically 100 Axemen attack Jackie Chan and Lar in like this kind of like tea house kind of area on 2 floors, and all these guys are attacking him, and there's just some brilliant moves, especially with like kind of a bamboo stick that gets split and it's cutting everybody. There's a really funny scene, if you spot at the side of the camera, where Jackie Chan is attacking these 2 guys and they're getting all cut up, and there's a guy in the window, a second floor window, ready to jump in with an axe, and he sees it and he looks over and he does like a Muppet scared face. You can barely see it. It's absolutely hilarious. Nice little touches like that. Loved all the characters. The stepmother is also great too. She kind of helps Jackie out when she can with deflecting Tai Lung. Tai Lung is also a great casting choice. He's one of these guys that has major star power carryover from the Shaw Brothers. Looks fantastic, sounds fantastic. I love this movie. This was a blast. I actually saw a martial arts movie in the theaters this week and I enjoyed it, but I have to admit that, when I was watching Drunken Master this same week, Drunken Master 2, I was like, they still can't do what they did back then with the stunts are just more dangerous. They just seem more alive. And as funny as this, people are taking massive hits here where they wouldn't be alive. They wouldn't take it. It just seems more raw and real, even though it is more of an adventure, kind of light fantasy movie. Not fantasy, but light adventure film, in the vein of so many other martial arts movies, in contrast to so many other martial arts movies where it's dark and grim and violent. It still has a lot of that, I guess, whimsy. I wouldn't call it necessarily wuxia style, because it doesn't ever dip into fantasy, but it does get completely ridiculous. And I should mention, Jackie Chan's having a lot of comedic beats with his Drunken Master style. So he's always being funny and goofy, and he's doing a lot of crazy, weird movements. The fight under the train, brilliant stuff. And it's the way it's so thought out, and the moves and all that choreographed, just beautiful stuff. This is a fantastic movie. Tons of great special features on here that I did watch them all, but I definitely need a refresher. As you can tell, I can't even say anybody's names anymore. If I can get it out of here. Okay. And I'm looking forward to diving into this set. Rumble in the Bronx will be a great revisit. And I've seen parts of First Strike, Police Story 4, so that'll be another good revisit here. But as far as the special features, of course, we have HDR10 compatible, Dolby Vision, of course, 3 versions: the Uncut 102 Hong Kong, 100-minute international cut, and the American retitled Legend of the Drunken Master 102. Original lossless Cantonese, Mandarin, and English mono for Hong Kong cut. English mono for international cut. Optional English 5.1 surround audio for Legend of the Drunken Master. Optional subtitles, of course. Brand new commentary by martial arts cinema experts Frank Jin and Frank D. DeSanto. Love that stuff. Frank Jin is also great. And this stuff, and you don't get to see him do too many Jackie Chan movies, especially where Jackie's the star. They talk a little bit about the making of it and all that kind of stuff like that. Before the breakout, a new featurette in which stuntman Wang Yao, academic actor Wayne Wong, and critics David West and James Munge look back at Jackie Chan's early career. This is good stuff, talking about where he was before he got this kind of big push. Breakout Part 1, a new featurette in which Wong, West, Munge, and stuntman Mars look back at the film. Cool. I imagine this is going to be all six or 7 parts of this. Good information. Deadly when drunken. You learn a lot about who took over directing and all that kind of stuff like that. And you learn a lot from the interviews of these people. Jackie Chan, he definitely had a hard working set. You worked hard on this set. Deadly when drunken. A new interview with co-writer Yang Kang Chi. He talks about Jackie's pretty honest with keeping the writer's words and stuff and carrying true to the script. Tipsy Tribulations, an expanded interview with stuntman Mars. I feel bad for this guy. He definitely got injured on this film. Period Postures, a new interview with academic Dr. Lars Lemon on the historical context behind the film. Great stuff, of course. Talking about the taxes and the bad guys in this film and why they're there. Drunken Defiance, a new appreciation of the film by martial arts cinema expert Ricky Baker. Archival interview with Jackie Chan film for the American release in 2000. Alternate Mandarin drinking scene contains standard definition inserts. The lyrics of the song are different. Texas Outtakes, Chinese New Year message is recorded by Jackie for Taiwanese and Malaysian audiences. Of course, these are very short. Trailer gallery, image gallery, reversible sleeve featuring original and newly commissioned artwork by Sam Hadley. Great release here. Great way to start off this box set. Tons of baddies on there. You got Tai Lung in the corner. Just loved it. Great. A nice change too from the other box sets I was watching. Somewhat similar to the Carl May, but definitely completely different from the Lucille Hadlovich box set. But this is great. I'm looking forward. Maybe I'll watch 2 next week and do these in a few weeks instead, just to kind of speed things along, because it definitely can use some more Jackie Chan in my life. Okay, we're gonna dive into the next one in the Carl May Adventure Call set here, and the next one is the Treasures of the Aztecs, and this one actually has, of course, Lex Baxter in here as well, and pretty much the same entire cast, the same kind of comic guy that follows him around. This time around, he's a German, which obviously has got to be, these are German films, so popular character actor here popping up as the German character in here. This is also 2 films that are direct sequels to each other, originally shot as one film by Robert Sudemak, and then cut into 2 films, which the audience definitely felt like a little betrayed in that aspect. They do it all the time now. But the Treasures of the Aztecs, let's start with this one, 1965. And I must first point out the excellent commentary by David Callett, who did commentary on the first disc. I think he did the commentary for the first Western on this one. Did a great job. He also does the commentaries on the Dr. Mabuse sets from Eureka Films. This is from Eureka Films, I should mention. This is the last disc we're covering here. And so this kind of points out that this doesn't obviously follow Old Shatterhand or the characters from previous movies. This is a new character, a doctor, and it's an odd kind of a deep cut character for a Carl May book. So that was kind of a big chance that they took. And they also talk about kind of not filming this in Yugoslavia, going to Spain or Mexico, and all these kind of switches, and working on who to get the director and things of that nature. But this one opens up, and Abraham Lincoln is president at the time, so it's a period piece, played by Jeff Corey, which is amazing. I don't know if I would have known that was Jeff Corey unless they spotted out classic character actor in a million movies. If you've seen a movie, you've seen Jeff Corey. But he plays Abe Lincoln, and he meets with the doctor. Doctor, what is his name? Rana. It's a strange name. And he basically tells him, listen, he's going to go down to Mexico and let him know and deliver a letter from the president that he has his support, and they're trying to overthrow basically these Frenchmen that have invaded during this Mexican-French kind of war back and forth and everything like that. So the doctor has an important message, and he's going to travel down. He meets his friend Hasenfratz, who is the classic character actor, sidekick character, and a bunch of other kind of characters that are going to get involved. One of the military men who actually ends up helping him, and one who ends up becoming the main villain of these 2 films. He's one of the main villains. There's several villains in this one. He also has a run-in with this kind of rich guy who's a good guy. He has a plantation or whatever he has. He basically has like a ranch, and he wants to help the president out and everything like that, Abraham Lincoln, and support this the Mexican president against the French and all that kind of stuff like that, because he's a good patriot. His son is a no good piece of crap, kind of has like a Clark Gable look to him, the thin mustache, very untrustworthy. Never trust a guy with a mustache, right? But so he has this untrustworthy kind of look about him and everything of that nature. So we're introducing all these characters. He's kind of has this woman who's pulling the strings, so it's a very elaborate, and they actually said it was even more kind of convoluted at a certain point with all these characters. So, and then it's a little convoluted, to be honest, but I actually really enjoyed myself with the last one. So we have all these kind of villains and all these characters, and all signs are going to point to this treasure of the Aztec, which is basically hidden in the mountains, and there is kind of a native style character and his daughter, who basically has to marry. I'm not sure if they're daughters, but he protects the treasure, and it's her duty to whoever she marries, and then the treasure could be given away. But all these greedy people are after the treasure, and this first film is just kind of introducing the characters. There's some action. The main bad guy has popped up in almost the last couple. He was in the Orient kind of trilogy as one of the big baddies, if not the big bad in that kind of series, and he plays another baddie, and he is absolutely filthy in this one, a chauvinistic like rapist, tries to sleep and rape with almost every woman he comes in contact with. Hell, right when he walks in, he almost rapes somebody, and the doctor has to protect him. But that's kind of what happens here, protect her from this kind of animal. But yeah, some good stuff here, some really tragic stuff with a son betraying his father in the most disgusting way. But overall, I thought that the treasure of the Aztec was really good, and one of my favorites of the bunch. As far as the features are concerned, like I said, we do have a commentary with from David Callett, which is fantastic. Let me find here, all of them are mixed up here, and then I think that's might be the only thing that's actually tossed on this disc here. New interview with the historian Sheldon Hall on the life and career of Robert Sudemak. I don't remember if that was on the previous disc or not, but this is one of my favorites from 1965. Very enjoyable, and some of the sets, to be honest, the sets, they had to shoot a lot of this on sets, which are not on location, and it shows. And there's certain points when it changes, and they're in the wilderness, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? It reminded me of like the Russian 50s and 60s fantasy films, where they have these big kind of elaborate medieval kind of sets and gorgeous kind of things, and it works perfect for the fantasy films. It's a little weird in this, because it's supposed to be kind of this adventure western film, but doesn't necessarily fit. It's enjoyable and odd, but without David Khaled, I would have a question mark on why the hell, but it's because they had to get these exterior shot because they ran out of time due to weather. So there's a lot of problems with this movie, but I think it turned out pretty damn good here. So I'd recommend this one, The Treasures of the Aztec, also known as The Mercenaries of something. It had an alternate title that's known, but it doesn't really make any sense. But yeah. Okay, we're going to carry on the sequel here. The Pyramid of the Sun God came out the same year in 65 as The Treasure of the Aztecs, and it pretty much continues the story right away. At the end of this first one, the doctor was hurt and injured, and you didn't really know where it was going to go, but he has manages to be saved by our kind of native princess or native girl, who ends up being kind of like a heroic style character here against there's a villainous female in here as well. And it basically has all these bad guys kind of coming together, and they start to betray each other, including another native chief and our main kind of ex-soldier who's excommunicated from the army. So they're all trying to plot and figure out where this treasure is. They actually reuse some of the same shooting and footage like that. You'll notice some of the same shots from the previous film. Like, oh, that was a shootout from this one, an action sequence from that. So it gets a little cheap in that aspect. The end kind of set piece in the Aztec thing is pretty cool, where somebody actually gets like a classic like death, like torture machine death thing, which is crazy. Kind of reminds me of like a Sato film, some of that set stuff, but it's just obviously a little bit more budgeted. This one, I think, it was a little bit more disappointing because I think they set up the first one well, and I like the whole story, and the characters really seem devious and bad. And this one is decent, but they kind of wrap it up in the same typical fashion that they did in the sequel to the old Shatterhand movie, where it's like greed's gonna conquer. It's almost the same freaking movie, where it's like, oh, well, the gold's ruined, everything's lava now, and a bunch of the bad guys died with it. So it's like, why are we? It's the same kind of movie. Definitely trying to cash in on that success. But overall, good double feature here. The first one's an hour and 1 minute, and the second one's 98 minutes. So they're quite long movies, but they do make kind of an epic. Overall, enjoyable set here. I would recommend the old Shatterhand. I actually enjoyed Winnetou and the Valley of Death over the first old Shatterhand, but the old Shatterhand's probably a better movie. And overall, good set, entertaining set, good adventure stuff. I would recommend not watching all these back to back. I would give yourself some space. Maybe watch the 2 first Shatterhand movies, and then the 3 Orient kind of trilogy movies, and then finally the last 2 kind of adventure western movies with the good old doc. But great release, learned a lot. Carl May was a name that I'd only heard of in passing, and that's very enjoyable. I learned a lot on the Eureka set. I love when they do these sets. We're going to end the worlds of Lucille Hadzalahivik. Sorry, that name still does not roll off the tongue very easy here. And where are we at here? Is it the next? No, this one here is a pretty new movie from 2025. I don't think it's had a wide release in the States yet. And this is The Ice Tower. And this is basically a take on The Snow Queen, which is a classic, kind of Hans Christensen story, if I'm not mistaken here. But yeah, so this one actually stars, kind of full circle here, one of the people from Lucille's first film, The Innocent, which I think is probably still my favorite. I love those kind of raw early films from filmmakers. But yeah, this one, I really enjoyed this here. So we have this, it's kind of a coming of age story, very dark, but fantastical and bizarre as well. And I think it's better than Earwig. I actually think this is my second favorite of the bunch after The Innocents. So we follow this girl who ends up running away from her home, and she's obsessed with the Snow Queen, as is her younger sibling, and she ends up kind of stumbling nowhere to go. And there's some really sad kind of moments where you kind of sense maybe some, I don't know, like lesbianism, or at least an outcry for friendship or interest, where this young girl, she's like 15 or 16, she's at an ice rink and she sees this girl skating, and she says, "You're doing such a great job. You skate great." And she says, "Thank you." He's like, "Do you know where there's a hostel for kids to stay?" And they kind of ignore her, and it just made me feel bad. Like, I genuinely felt horrible for her. So she ends up kind of sneaking in this place and ends up sleeping in this kind of closet, which seems to be a little bizarre. I can't remember if she's drawn to like a dress or something of that nature, but when she wakes up, she kind of looks out and you don't know if she's dreaming, but she realizes she's on a movie set and there's somebody playing the Snow Queen, and it's our star here, and then she's kind of becomes infatuated with her, obviously from, you know, her childhood and those fantasy that she liked, that story, and also this that she stumbled on here, and there's that touch of kind of like a father, a mother like daughter relationship possibly blooming, or infatuation, basically reality mixing with fantasy in the kind of film world. And the film is probably best at doing this, where there'll be times when you're watching them perform the film on set, which is a trick they use in Henry, which is a completely opposite kind of style of a movie, but they use the trick very well in Henry, and I've always loved the trick where we're basically watching, we're on the film set, we're seeing the scene be recorded, and then we kind of pull back and somehow there's a slight switch where we don't notice it, but then we're watching the audience, basically the characters watching the dailies of it, and you're like, oh, so now we've become the viewer, we were in there and now we're rewatching it past. And I always felt like that was a nice touch to kind of keep you guessing, and that's how they kind of tend to mix the reality with the fantasy, where sometimes it feels like the movie is real and it's not just, you know, them filming, and somehow it works really well. I think that the acting performances are great, and I think that it's definitely got the nice emotional core to the film, especially between the two characters here. Dark, and the idea is said that you know, sometimes you have it all, but you are so lonely that you feel like you have nothing, and sometimes you have nothing, but maybe you still have some spirit or something in you that carries you forth. Who knows? This director, she tends to kind of leave a lot of things in the air to interpretation somewhat, never really over explains her things, and she definitely has a lot of different interests. You know, mentioning when she talks about it, she was into giallo, and you can see that there's definitely some mystery and intrigue and some of the styles that she does, and she also had a huge impact from Eraserhead, which is a complete surreal movie that doesn't over explain what it is, but you can kind of pick up things here and there. David Lynch is kind of the king of that. When you're watching it, it makes all the perfect sense in the world, but when you go to talk about it or discuss it or understand it, it's a little bit kind of strange and bizarre, and it's a very, very you know, intriguing stuff here. People could definitely dissect this one. Like the lead performances in here, and I didn't even notice that was Gaspar Noé as the film's director within there. Lucille Hadlovich and Gaspar Noé have a connection, and they work together and stuff of that nature. So, and I definitely can feel that they do have a kinship in their films. Also, Gaspar Noé's movies, I think, are just a quite more brutal, less fantastical, although some of his elements do go completely fairy tale-esque. I wouldn't say fairy tale, maybe a dark fairy tale or something like that, but I would say experimental. They definitely do have some experimental aspects to it, but I thought this was a pretty damn good movie, honestly, The Ice Tower. But as far as features, introduction by Lucille, like all the films, interview with cinematographer Jonathan Rigobaro, Lucille Hadlovich, and the critic Beatrice Loazania in conversation, light and fascination, metro textuality, and The Ice Tower video essay, 2 IFC centers, Q&As. I can't remember who does this video essay. I feel like it's somebody that I hear all the time do these things, and I feel bad. It's possibly the Australian person. I cannot remember their name. It's not listed here, which is unfortunate. But this is from Severn and Yellow Veil Pictures. So the whole box set basically covers her entire 4 features and 2 of her short films here, starting with Innocence, Evolution, Earwig, and The Ice Tower. We have a nice booklet as well. Very interesting, nice box set. Some of it does feel like homework, but that's the best way to learn more about film and studies, and I don't mean that as an insult. Like, I watch all different types of films, but they're not to say it's not like bubblegum. You know, it's not bubblegum. You're not just going to sit there and dissect them easily, you know, like so many other films. But interesting stuff, great box set from Severn Films. If you love the films, it's definitely worth picking up. And especially if you like experimental art films or dark kind of fantasy art films, this is definitely up your alley. Okay, I can't believe this one got a nice Blu-ray release from Cult Epics Films. This is a movie that I first saw when I was going through my run of 1980s films, and I had heard about it in passing a couple times, and it always had a pretty damn good reputation for being intense. And this is Troy Hark's Don't Play with Fire. More so, the version I know it under is Dangerous Encounters of the First Kind. And this film has an interesting history on releases and things of that nature. There's 3 releases on this one, actually. We have the director's cut, which is what I initially saw when I watched it for 1980, which includes more animal violence, and it has different motives, more bomb planting, and it has the theatrical version, which has a whole storyline with more added cops and a different reason for certain things happening, and the different, I guess you'd say, catalysts in certain extents. And it also has an English version, which is named English dub version, which I believe is actually shorter than some of the other versions. Yeah, it's the shortest possible version here. So the star of this film, I want to make sure I get her name right, Ling Che-chi. Now, I first noticed her when I was watching the 1980 movie. She was in a couple Shaw Brothers movies like Heaven and Hell and Haunted Tales. And she was in 3 or 4 movies I watched that from 1980, and she was really good. She has a great, unique look, but she stood out in this and turned in one of the most amazing performances of 1980. This is a dark movie. I think you would put it in the subgenre of kind of like the Hong Kong, and they say it's like new wave influence, but it feels like that small, short-lived subgenre of kind of like the teens run wild in Hong Kong that they had. They had like The Happening, which is another movie from 1980. There's a handful of them, and I've pretty much seen them all, and they're all really strong and really good films here. And Troy Hark is an interesting director because you think like he had some kind of like her bigger movies later on, like Once Upon a Time in China, and his fantasy movies like Zoo Warriors from 82. But he also had We're Going to Eat You from 1980, the same year, which is an absolutely hilarious, fun cannibal flick, which I enjoy as well. But he had stuff like the Van Damme movies like Knockoff and Double Team. So he kind of did different things. And this movie is like this dark and nasty, gritty movie. It's his 3rd feature film. And so I didn't think this was ever going to get a release because it's such a dark movie. Leave it to Cult Epics. It would be Cult Epics or Mondo Macabre that would pick this up. And they tend to be the ones that always grab the stuff that you're like, I can't believe they're putting this out. But I'm happy they are. So here we go. So this story follows kind of 3 nerdy guys that it depends what version you watch, but in both versions they get in trouble and they do something kind of like I don't even want to call it a prank, but they both they do these horrible things that end up in accidental death possibly of someone. I don't want to say it's accidental because what they did. One involves bombings, which obviously was a no-no and a domestic terrorist acts, and one involves kind of like a hit and run. They're both the same film, again, different reasons. And our lead here, the Lin Che-chi, she actually spots them do it, and she decides to kind of like, they almost like she wants to be embraced by them, but she's almost manipulating. She's basically manipulating and using them, and her main goal is money. She doesn't have her parents are no longer around. She's a young girl, and her brother, it takes care of her in Lo Lei, another amazing actor from the Black Magic movies and Human Lanterns, and just a great actor here. He plays this cop who's not particularly a good cop either. So we have all this stuff, a big predominant chunk of this movie takes place in kind of like the Hong Kong slums and those giant, massive apartments, which are just kind of like horrifying when you film it the way you do in this film. It's dark, it's gritty, it's nasty. I mean, the movie opens up with somebody sticking a needle in a mouse's head for real and running around. It's like, it just feels brutal. And in interviews with Troy Hark, he does mention, kind of being inspired by just this random act of violence that somebody carried out, burning a car. Why would they do it? A teen burned this car. But also, a lot of times, it seems like he might have been angry with this idea, the systems, all this kind of stuff like that. And some of these Hong Kong movies end up coming out, they seem pretty angry. Stuff like Lost Souls or The Beast or Men Behind the Sun, or exploitative or angry, or a little bit of mixture of all these kind of things like that. And this movie is definitely angry. And I don't want to say this because I don't want to give it the wrong impression, but to me, it has like this guerrilla style where it seems incredibly fucking dangerous, and I love that in filmmaking. I know it's not something that we should do or condone anymore, but that shit always gets my blood pumping, and I would say something like Deadbeat at Dawn has that element too, right? Obviously a little bit more professional in terms of money and stuff, and they had it. But yeah, so what happens is they end up carrying out these crimes that she wants to commit, including bombings and all this kind of twisted, messed up stuff here, and they end up stealing this money from this foreigner. Again, the evil foreigner kind of concept here, right? When we're talking about Hong Kong, we steal this money from these foreigners, and it's like Japanese, it's yen, but it's in Japanese banknotes, so they can't really spend it the right way. And at first, they go to a gang to help them spend it, and of course, the gang double crosses them as they would. But it basically brings the attention of these foreign guys that are murderers. They're just vicious monsters, and they come after these kids, and it gets brutal, it gets nasty, and it ends in this giant, amazing climax in a cemetery. And their cemetery, I've seen this cemetery used before. I'm not sure if Crazy Blood uses the same cemetery, another movie from 1983, or all their cemeteries are built like that, kind of like stacked up in these kind of mountainous things like that, which is very, very unique. But yeah, the acting's tremendous in this movie. You'll recognize some faces here, like I said, Lo Lei and Lin Chi, and also there's the nerdy guy who, the main kind of one of the nerds here, is in 1,000 movies. He's all the way in stuff like Taxi Hunter. He just pops up. You'd recognize him immediately. A lot of familiar faces in this one. But yeah, Lo Lei's character obviously gets caught into this case, and it doesn't look good for him because being directly involved with his sister, and he kind of has like a death wish too, and gets directly involved with this case and goes at it hard, kind of cop taking the law into his own hands. But as Troy Hark says in the special features, nobody's really good. Nobody's really a hero in this movie. There's a lot of bad guys. There's a lot of bloodshed. There's a lot of violence, and the cat kind of being on the barbed wire fence, and then the end of what happens to another character is just a beautiful, poetic moment of kind of just showing, I guess you'd say like a foreshadow of what's things to come for this character. But as far as the features, we got uncensored international version, 2K transfer and restoration, audio commentary by Frankie Balboa and Brandon Straisnig. Good commentary, points out a lot about this stuff and talks about Troy Hark in a bit. Then we have interview with director Troy Hark, interview with actor Paul Chi, interview with actor Albert Wu, interview with screenwriter Sechu Chekhon, interview with assistant director Oh Sing Poo, and then we have trailers. And then the second disc we have the banned Chinese version, 2K SD. As SD inserts, the inserts look pretty freaking rough, to be honest. And then we have the English dub version, promotional gallery bonus, extras. I'm so happy this movie finally got a release here stateside. This is a gem. I don't know if I prefer the Don't Play with Fire title. It's hard for me to get used to because it's such a Dangerous Encounters of the First Kind title. I mean, both are fine. I like the cover art, but I would highly recommend this one. There's also definitely politics involving like classism here because one of the characters definitely comes from a more money background kind of style thing. Highly recommend this one. It looks better than I've seen it look. I mean, this is a kind of a rough looking movie in the first place, so take that into context. But there's never really been a nice release stateside. I mean, maybe there was a French DVD, if I'm not mistaken, probably the same people that put out Red to Kill on that DVD years ago. But I do believe there was a French DVD that had both versions on there. But now we have it in Blu-ray. That's right. It also comes out in DVD. But just an excellent movie if you like the dark, gritty stuff. And I know people are like, well, this is nothing compared to the stuff that comes out nowadays. Yeah, but it's good, and it seems like it seems very contextually important compared to a lot of the shit. It's just not. It's not violence and insanity for no reason. I feel like there's a point to this. And I mean, I like extreme movies when they have like a point or context or something in it that I can grasp onto, and I can pull away from it. Those usually end up being my favorite movies. Like, in spite of all the horrific shit, this movie's still a masterpiece, makes it even better, right? But I love this one. Maybe I'm overhyping it. I really like it. I'm also very sick. I'm a sick man. You guys all know this, right? So check it out. Don't Play with Fire, Dangerous Encounters of the First Kind. Okay, I kind of buried the lead here, right? This is one that everybody's talking about. We already have controversy here. Scream Factory with some controversy, and we're going to talk about the new 4K of Day of the Dead. If you guys didn't know, first time at the channel or something, my all-time favorite movie ever made. Been my favorite, or one of my favorites since I was 10 years old. Back and forth with this and Dawn of the Dead. I guess I'm a simple bitch, a basic bitch here, but I love my George Romero. George Romero's my all-time favorite. We're talking Day of the Dead. This is the 4K thing of edition here. This movie, they were talking about the elements were hard to find. There was all these rumors going around, but so basically we have 4 discs here. We have the 4K remaster on DVD and 4K, and then we have 2 bonus discs, some new features, and then we have the old kind of the World's End making of, which is an old one. It has a bunch of interviews with people on here. So first and foremost, let's talk about the sound issue. So I guess in the DVD version years ago from Anchor Bay, there was some censored audio. John would say right instead of shit. I could do this with all this going on. That's messed up. And also I remember distinctly the shot when Steele kills a zombie that bites Miguel Salazar and he shoots him. The gun cut off. The echo cut out in the mine. And I remember always being bothered by that because I'd seen this movie 1,000 times. And then they fixed it in the Scream Factory Blu-ray and the Umbrella Blu-ray that came out that was corrected audio. So they went ahead and painstakingly remastered the elements here to get a 4K, and they did a Dolby Atmos track and everything like that on this release. Yet they somehow used old audio, something to do that, and it's the censored audio. I don't know if they're going to offer a replacement disc. It's kind of aggravating. There's 5 or 6 scenes that have this kind of issue in there. I think there's a line, God, Jesus is messed up too. So there's some lines that are messed up here. There is a Laserdisc audio on here that they added on, which is the correct correct audio. So if you're fine, you want to listen to the Laserdisc audio, it's the correct audio. But they do have all these different audios, and they all are messed up except the Laserdisc audio here, unfortunately. The Dolby Atmos 5.1, the 2-point mono, isolated sound, that doesn't matter. But then we have the Laserdisc one as well. For the movie, I don't know how in depth. I've talked about this movie a trillion million times for good reason. But George A. Romero, of course, made the pretty much the groundbreaking Night of the Living Dead in '68. It gained popularity in the late '60s, early '70s, thanks to French critics. Became this kind of world-renowned horror movie and a very important movie. One of the catalysts, I guess people would say, to that gritty '70s movies. What would see Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Last House on the Left, all that kind of stuff like that, right? But it was a copywritten properly because the last minute name changed, Night of the Anubis or something like Night of the Flesh Eater, something like that. They changed the title last minute. So boom, Night of the Living Dead ended up in public domain. George Romero unfortunately didn't make that much more money from that. And then he would follow up a bunch of other movies, of course. There's Always Vanilla, Season of the Witch, The Crazies, Martin. But his next big hit, those are all fantastic movies for the most part. I love Martin. I love, Crazies, a bunch of stuff. Good stuff, all worth watching and seeking out. He made Dawn of the Dead, which was, I imagine, even bigger than Night of the Living Dead to a certain extent in different ways. And he carried his unique version further, if anybody's seen the trailer, taking place in a shopping mall. All his zombie films reflect the time that they take place in, right? Night of the Living Dead reflects that kind of angry time in the late 60s, early 70s, civil rights movements, and Vietnam War. Then the 70s reflects, that kind of a spend culture, the consumerism. And then this is a big hit as well. And he continues making movies and everything like that, makes a 3-picture deal, and he ends up, making his other first two. Night Riders, a very personal movie, Creepshow, an incredibly fun EC Comics anthology, and then he gets to make Day of the Dead. And Day of the Dead is supposed to be like the final Dead film. Of course, his budget is cut in half because he can't promise a rated version of it, so he scales everything back, and it's no longer this epic that takes place mostly in like the Florida Everglades and all this kind of stuff like that. He makes it condensed down. Most of it takes place underground now, but it still has the same kind of themes and meanings. Basically, if you watch George Romero's movies, the zombies carry on, learning, of course. They start off dumber. You'll see tools like a brick by Bill Heinzman in the first Night of the Living Dead. Dawn of the Dead, they start to use more tools and everything like that. They're evolving because Romero created the flesh-eating ghoul basically based on A Nightmare and basically I Am Legend from Richard Matheson. Great book, by the way. See, it carries on that kind of the zombies kind of getting smarter and smarter and everything like that. Now we're the last 12 people on Earth, scientists versus soldiers, right? We have the crazy Rhodes, who's this Captain Rhodes, who's nuts and power hungry and just kind of losing everything. And Day of the Dead is basically about, miscommunication, which often Romero's movies are about, and this kind of power struggle that everybody wants something out of life different, like John says. But we have these kind of contrasting views, right? Where the military, they just want to kill all the zombies, kill, forget all this crap. And Richard Liberty, Dr. Logan, who's a scientist, who's just going to these extreme measures, which aren't going to help them really. He's trying to teach the zombies and whatnot and reward them, but it's really not going to work. And the main character in the middle, you have Sarah, Dr. Laurie Cardell, that's who plays it. Dr. Sarah Bowman, who's played by Laurie Cardell, daughter of Chili Bill, who did the Chiller Theater, or what is it? The Pittsburgh popular, thriller. But basically, he's in Night of the Living Dead. His daughter here, so that's great. But so she's kind of in the middle. She's our main character here, trying to survive in this otherwise dead landscape where there's nobody around. The soldiers have all kind of lost their minds. Everybody's seeming to lost their mind except her, and John and a couple other people in the film. But I love Day of the Dead because there's, of course, the special effects by Tom Savini are amazing. The zombies look great, but you can see actually when people crack in the movie. There's a few scenes here when Rhodes snaps finally. Those are my men in there. Logan. It must be rewarded, Captain. Without reward, there's just no use for it. Just no use for it at all. Completely unhinged the whole movie, but you can see him crack there. Steele cracks in here. My favorite character, one of my favorite characters of all time, if not my favorite, is Steele. He's just the ultimate goon. And Romero's really good about taking I guess you'd say, a typically one-dimensional character and giving him these layers, or giving the actor something to do, which makes it all seem a little bit more important. Steele has a couple scenes like that really kind of bring his character out and make him a little bit more three-dimensional, and a fantastic performance by Gary Claw. I think all the performances in here are really strong. Some of the small characters don't really get much to do, like Greg Nicotero's Johnson Miller and Torres. They don't get that much to do, but everyone else, I think, gets to flex their acting muscle, and they turn in the performance and a better performance than most people would think. And I know that some people have said that Day of the Dead is overacted. Quentin Tarantino, for one of them, a lot of the critics, Roger Ebert, and everything like that. But I think that if they could look at it through today's lens and realize, maybe we're getting closer to the end of the world because everyone's lost their fucking mind. And I don't think that this is overacted at all. And the hysterics that you see people in nowadays, this is tame. And it's a funny thing when we talk about the Dead Zone for 83, we bring up, people be like, oh, Greg Stillson's a little over the top, isn't he? And even back then in 83, Cronenberg's like, no, he's not. And he absolutely is not over the top for a politician when we look in today's landscape. As Laurie Cardale said in the special features, and I've always said about George Romero, and I think many people have, he's prolific. He's prophetic. He all the things he does, they seem to come to fruition, right? And I feel like that of all great film directors, especially the sci-fi one. Sci-fi just tends to do that a lot, right? But because I guess there's some basis in what they're saying that eventually it will come true, or some aspects of it will. I think that the longer directors make this kind of stuff, right, that the best ones, they're later in films, I think that they become just as good as they always were, and you start watching them and say, oh, they're very predictive of the future here. Even something like John Carpenter's The Mouth of Madness and The Mass Hysteria. I feel like when I rewatch that a few times in the last few years, I'm like, oh wow, this hits better now, and it's just, you think it's just one thing, but it's just future telling. And I think even stuff like Diary of the Dead has it in there that's really smart, although the movie's not obviously as good as their original 3 or even 4 first movies, but it does have interesting stuff in there. But Romero's budget, I'm all over the tirade here, but this is my favorite movie. Romero's budget was cut in half, right? So he had to scale things down and put a lot of the stuff into Land of the Dead. But besides the acting, besides the characters, besides the special effects, there's also a fantastic moments of the dialogue in here that just feels really important and really touching. The score by John Harrison, I think, is Romero's most underrated score. I think it's actually one of the best. And they carried on. They were going to have this Everglades kind of feel too, this Caribbean feel, and in the original script, but they kept that element here, and I think it works well. As Romero said, it's a lighter thing against all the bleak backdrop, and I'm a sucker for that. If you watch, one of my favorite movies is Cannibal Holocaust, right? We had that beautiful music by Riz Ortolani, and that horrific stuff that you're seeing. It's somehow playing that horrific stuff, seeing that horrific stuff, and hearing that wonderful music gives you this sense of hope, or a sense of something. It's kind of like, it's these two things. It's a weird kind of take on it, but I just don't think it works on that level either. I think the music is wonderful, and I do think there's a small bit of hope. As far as humanity is concerned as a whole, it's hopeless, but as far as these characters are concerned, there's definitely some love and hope within them. I guess the 3 main characters towards the end of the film. Just a lot of great lines. Come along, Johnny, I'm counting on you to fly us to the promised land. Lines that I don't think other people find as good to me. Those lines stand out to me, and I think that Dawn is highly quotable, and Night has its moments too. I mean, those movies have great quotes, and it's due to the script and stuff, but it's also due to Romero letting some of the actors do their own thing at times. Just a wonderful movie, and I think that it gets better every time, every year. And unfortunately, the people involved die every year. Romero's no longer there. Gary Claw, Joe Pilato as Rhodes, which is one of the all-time best bad guys ever. Richard Liberty as Logan. So many people have passed from this movie. Miguel Salazar, Tim DeLoe. Also a great performance too, and just the epitome of mental illness. And everybody in this movie, like I said, it's just this mental illness, miscommunication. If you watch George Romero's The Crazies and things of that nature, or Dawn of the Dead, the arguments. Nobody can get on the same page, and we can't come together to solve anything. We just fight and fight and fight, and I think there's a lot of truth in that, and there always will be. The audio is a huge bummer for me, to be honest. I hope they do replacement disc just for the 4K, just the correct audio disc. I hope Second Sight releases it. If not, because I'll definitely double dip, as it's my favorite movie. As far as the cover art, I know a lot of people are complaining about it. Don't love it. Don't absolutely hate it. It just doesn't look great to me. I think that the original VHS, and I think one of the posters, I think this is maybe not the original poster. I think the original poster is probably this one here, which I don't love. It's very Night and Dawn. It's very Dawn. But this one I've always loved. That was the VHS I originally saw. Something very similar to that. I've always had a fondness for. I do eventually, when I get back to 1985, I'm going to do a deep dive into Day of the Dead and have guests at a panel and everything like that, because hell, it's my favorite movie, and I'm looking forward to getting to 85 again. I mean, I know you're like, you already did 85, but we're redoing it. We're going to redo it. As far as the special features are concerned, we'll start with the 4K here. We have new restoration 4K from Interpositive presented in Dolby Vision, new 5.1. We talked about the audio sources, guys. We have a new commentary with author Daniel Kraus and film critic Drew McWeeny. Daniel Kraus actually wrote or finished Twilight of the Dead, Romero's book, which is supposed to be the end of all the zombie ones. I have that on my Audible that I bought. Can't wait to listen to it. Haven't had time. And Drew McWeeny, he's a critic, and I've heard him he had that 80s podcast, and his commentary with Daniel Kraus is a very good commentary. A lot of love for this movie, and I think it's a great commentary. I enjoyed it, and I didn't always agree with what Drew McWeeny would say on the '80s podcast, but who agrees with anyone 100% anyways? But I did really dig that commentary. Then we have the old commentary with director Romero, Tom Savini, production designer Cletus Anderson, and actor Laurie Cardille. Good stuff. Then bonus disc 2. This is the Blu-ray. All the same stuff ported over. And then we have the bonus disc here. Bonus disc. The third disc is Gore the World's End, The Making of Day of the Dead, the feature-length documentary. And disc 4, this is all the new stuff. Interview with actor Laurie Cardille. Great stuff. Assistant to Tom Savini, actor Greg Nicotero. Great stuff. Composer, first assistant director John Harrison. And then we have the founder of George A. Romero Foundation, Suzanne Romero. And also his wife, actor John Apples. Second unit cameraman Ernest Dickerson. Great. He actually filmed some of the stuff in Florida on the opening scene, which is a beautiful opening. Hello. Then we have then we have one with filmmaker Tina Romero, George Romero's daughter, who directed Queens of the Dead, which is a very cool, fun movie. And then we have new Monster Mania, Restoring Day of the Dead documentary, and they talk about the story of all the film elements and issues that they had trying to find this thing. And it does seem like I don't want to say they're taking this whole arduous task of finding the film prints and saying how hard it was and how much work went into it, and then they fuck the audio up. It's kind of just like, man, fuck. And I know nobody's perfect, but hey, maybe send out some disc without the cover art and let reviewers check that out and everything. New Stink of the Dead featurette, Underground, a look into the Day of the Dead mines. Great stuff. Behind the scenes footage from special effects filmmaker Tom Savini archives. Wampum Mine promotional video, photo gallery, theatrical trailer, TVD spots. That Stink of the Dead featurette, Underground, a look at Day of the Dead mines, I believe has Ed Demko in there from Wasteland guy, a buddy of mine. So that's really cool as well. All these features are great. Hearing all the people reminisce about George Romero and all this kind of stuff like that, and talk about the movie and the stuff on here, but and the people that aren't interviewed on this are definitely in the World's End making of Day of the Dead. So you got like Gornick and Joe Pilato and a bunch of people who passed away. Unfortunately, Richard Liberty had already been passed away, and Rickles had already been passed away, Ralph Mario. But great release here, and we got all these nice little cards here that I'm going to open up and show you guys. Great movie, great movie. Just good release, except the sound, man. I know a lot of people are complaining that the how it looked. I was fine with it. I mean, I've seen this movie come a long way. I'll definitely pick up the second sight if they do one. People, that's a rumor. I don't know. I heard rumors that people said that nobody can use their elements that they found. I don't fucking know. I hope they offer a replacement. If not, I will refer to Scream Factory as Scam Factory for the next 10 years. I'm just kidding. But, I'm glad they put it out. But it's slightly disappointing. It's bittersweet. It's bitter fucking sweet. But hey, I'm running this monkey farm now, Frankenstein, and I want to know what the fuck you're doing with my time. I could quote that whole movie. I don't want to put too much into it because then it just seems even cringier than it already is. But Day of the Dead, to me, this is going to sound crazy. Romero's original trilogy is the benchmark to all zombie movies for me, and Return of the Living Dead. Those ones, it's like, is it those? Is it as good as those? That's where I compare. Those are all like 10-star movies for me, 10 out of 10s. So when I compare the other zombie movies, how's it rate against that? Like Fulci Zombie. It gets up there. That's Let Sleeping Corpses Lie. It gets there. And then there's some other ones that I love for different reasons that get up there. Cemetery Man. That's just, it's not in the same vein. But there's just so many, But Romero's the one that pretty much, I loved horror movies my whole life. But when I was about 10 years old, I got obsessed with George Romero. And the obsession lasted me the rest of my life until this very moment. All-time favorite director. Had the honor of meeting him at a convention one time. I met the entire main cast from Dawn of the Dead, the 4 leads, and Savini as well, and I met of course Steele and Rhodes, and I wish I had got to meet more of the cast from Day of the Dead, but it's just it's strange seeing this, and I hope people watch this and love it and enjoy it, and I think that it holds up And I think there's a lot of truth in it. And I think there's always a lot of truth in George Romero's movies. And I find that as like probably the most, complimentary thing you could say about a filmmaker is that they still hold up and they still have resonance, and, they don't seem crappily dated or something like that. But hell, sometimes the dated stuff works as well too. Works not as well, but works, in certain aspects. I can go on and on about Day of the Dead. Let's get the hell out of here. All right, we're going to talk about a theater watch here. And I went and checked out The Furious. I'm surprised this got such a wide release. Super happy it did. Seeing a lot of wild and weird movies get these big releases here and stuff like that, like Backrooms Obsession, The Furious. So Furious martial arts movie from this year has a bunch of familiar faces in here. The guy I recognized right away was from like The Raid and The Night Comes for Us. And I'm not going to lie to you, I did some assuming like an idiot. And I was like, well, it's got to be by the same people who did The Raid or The Night Comes for Us. Somebody behind those movies did this, and it's not. It's a Japanese director, and he was like a stunt guy, stunt action kind of action director. But he ended up directing this one. I don't know if this is his directorial debut, but man, it is really fucking good for an early directed film. So this movie has some of the same fighting styles, I would say, as those kind of movies. Really, like, kind of really amazing martial arts stuff. And it's a kind of an international cast here. You have actors from like China and Japan and all these kind of different places. So that's really cool. So the story is kind of basic, right? To a certain extent. There's an underground, like, kind of child, like, slave trading kind of network where these bad guys. Basic plot nowadays. Hey, it's not even, it's reality, right? It's always been reality. But there's this group of baddies that are basically taking children and selling them off, and it goes all the way up to the very fucking top. So that's basically what happens here. And we have this mute martial artist who keeps to himself. He has a daughter, loves his daughter very much. And one day, she kind of gets lured away by another guy, and she ends up kind of almost being kidnapped by this group of like child, traffickers. And there's this amazing fight scene in the very beginning that I don't want to spoil too much, but the fight scenes are great. And I think that in the first opening scene, when you first see a couple of the fight scenes, it's really impressive and blows you away because like how it's done and the brutality. And my jaw was on the floor. My jaw fell down a couple times during this movie, more so than any of the horror movies I've watched in theaters this year, where I was like, I can't believe they're doing that. I'd look over and be like, what? Oh my God. But I'm not going to lie, after a while, the craziness almost kind of wore out its welcome, where I was like, Jeremy watched it with me and he said, you can only hit somebody with a hammer so many times where it becomes no longer a hammer, right? Where it becomes so desensitized to a hammer hit. It's not like Old Boy where everyone hurts. You're like, okay, I got it. And at this point, we're using a hammer so much that I'm just kind of like losing interest. I do feel like this has the same kind of problem that many modern movies have. It's a little too long. And I think that some of the stuff, it just like, I feel like it feels gritty and grounded at times, but I think it just goes a little too over the top for me. Saying that, it's still an excellent movie. I still think you should see it in theaters. I think that most people who love martial arts movies will love it. I dig it. I really liked it. But without spoiling too much, yeah. So that's basically it. There ends up being like these two guys that are both after the same group for different reasons that team up. A lot of the story bits and points are very generic. I won't say that they're super, like nuanced or anything like that. But there's some brilliant fight scenes, some brilliant set pieces, some dangerous looking stuff here. And there's a character here who's like this big bald guy who's really like kind of like one of the more fun fighting styles. I've never seen anyone quite fight like the frickin' Juggernaut or something like that. But his fighting style is excellent, and his fight scenes are all super unique. But overall, I thought The Furious was a great, fun, entertaining movie. Dark and nasty at the same time, but not too nasty, not grounded enough, I guess, to a certain extent, but maybe if you ground it a little too more, it'll just get a little too nasty. But the bad guys are all entertaining, all unique, all have their own style, so it never gets old in that aspect, but I think some of the stuff does tend to go on a little too far. But I feel like a lot of times Japanese movies, even like the splatter movies, they always just take it that extra fucking step, like Tokyo Gore Police or something like that, or Meatball Machine. You're like, now the person's just flying with blood spray? Like, it's almost parody at a certain fucking point. But anyways, The Furious is great stuff. I would recommend this one. Check it out. Okay, let's get into those 1983 movies.
I have returned.
Okay. Show me.
Where is the music now? The sound of laughter. There was never laughter.
What's it like?
What's what like?
Screwing a psycho.
God blows dead dogs. Just lay it in there.
Eat shit and die, Ricky.
Eat shit and live, Bill.
Yeah, Bill, he's a little wet.
31. 32. 32. Year of a man's prime. Loved by many women. He might still learn to swim. 32. Going. Gone.
The kid was cut in half, Arnie. They had to scrape his legs up with a shovel.
Well, isn't that what you're supposed to do with shit? Scrape it up with a little shovel?
One final moment of revenge.
Wondering what's real. All of it is real.
You want to see something really scary? You bet. Really? Yeah.
Get the video, Joe. Long live the new flesh.
No choice but to kill the son of a bitch.
Living one's entire life in a state of fear. It is all I have ever known. Fear.
Are you ready? Okay, go ahead. What are you doing?
Okay, this one here is Moments of Agony and Pleasure. And I've not heard anyone talk about this one. I used AI subtitles. They worked some of the time. They didn't work other times. I kind of pieced it together. They kind of might have ruined the experience, just a little bit. But this stars Anthony Stefan, who I was just assuming was always an Italian actor, but he's an Italian-Brazilian actor. And you guys would know Anthony Stefan from a handful of, like, Angel for Satan, the Barbara Steele movie. But mostly, you know him, I think, from spaghetti westerns. He has, the distinct, credit to his name that he was in the most, a distinct honor of his name, the most spaghetti westerns, Anthony Stefan. It's kind of wild to think. I know he's in a slew of them. But Anthony Stefan's always a bizarre Django Kill. Django the Bastard, I think, is the one he's in. But it's kind of like a pseudo-horror kind of western. He's an odd-looking guy. He always has these kind of dead eyes, if you ask me. And that's kind of like his look. And he's older in this one, 83. You know, most of the movies I've seen him in were the 60s and 70s. And this is Brazil. So it kind of threw me for a loop here. And I just had not heard much about this one. And a lot like the other Brazilian kind of films at this time, it's more softcore or stuff in there, a lot of sex, a lot of nudity, and it fits in that kind of pattern, right? Where I don't remember what those Brazilian movies were called, where it's like put as much sex and violence in there as you possibly can, and just don't do anything political, and then you're free to go. And that's kind of like their idea. Those, I guess, it's like their Nikatsu or their Pinky films or their exploitation or grindhouse movies. And that's kind of what we're at here. But this one has a lot less killing than one would expect. It's kind of a Brazilian giallo, if you will. But Anthony Stefan runs this kind of farm. I'm not sure exactly what he does. He's a farm ranch hand, and he's in love with this teacher who also is bisexual. So she's a lesbian, and she has a lot of these like lesbian flings with students, including a pair of students and another student, and also another woman who is married to like a blind guy, or I'm not sure their relationship, as the subtitles were not great. But we have all this kind of idea, right, where she's kind of sleeping around, and a lot of this movie is just kind of like a lot of fornication, a lot of having sex in the wilderness and woods and hookups and all this kind of stuff like this, until about like 45 minutes, an hour in, a couple of people start getting picked off. The death scenes aren't explicit, they're not amazing, some of them are kind of downright bad. There's one part where somebody's getting like stabbed in the water, and they're like, I'm like, that's not very good, is it? But it's not absolutely abysmal or anything like that. More on the softcore kind of oriented side. But when the reveal happens, I feel like the acting is pretty decent. I think from the two leads, Anthony Stefan's pretty solid in here. Still a broad, big guy. Even as he's older, he still has a broad shoulders, kind of a bigger guy. Kind of surprised. But I thought his performance is pretty solid. Overall, I think Moments of Pleasure and Agony is just okay, slightly subpar. Nothing to write home about. A bit different from a lot of the other Brazilian ones I've seen. A lot of them do incorporate incorporate like jungle and woods and stuff like that, but this felt more in kind of the wilderness here. There's of course some red herrings and everything like that, but you'll probably lose interest before you start actually determining who the killer is if you care. I mean, it's just like not really something that you're even worried about, but it's okay. Moments of agony and pleasure. Great title, cool poster, okay movie. Okay, the next one here is The Island of Blood Plantation, or Escape from Blood Plantation. I've seen a couple different titles, and this is actually directed by Kurt Rabe. I'm not sure how to say his name, but he was an actor who popped up in a bunch of Michael Fassbinder movies, and Fassbinder was a pretty prolific director for a short period of time before he kind of burned himself out and fucking died very young. But I think Ali is one that I covered on here, Fear of the Soil. That's a great movie. I've only seen a couple of his movies, but some of the stuff he produced, maybe one of his movies is some produced stuff, but he's really strong in what I've seen. Very, very prolific, and I definitely look forward to watching some of his other ones. But Kurt Rabe was an actor that was in a handful of his movies, but he's in a movie that I absolutely think is kind of an unsung masterpiece to a certain extent, and that is Tenderness of the Wolves, which is based on a true case, loosely based on a true case of the serial killer Fritz Harman from, I believe, a German serial killer, and Kurt Rabe plays him. He's the lead, and it's directed by Ulay Lamel, produced by Fassbinder. Just a really good movie, and Kurt Rabe is always stuck in my head as a tremendous kind of performer in that movie, and he reminded me definitely of Peter Lorre in M. But this one here, I was like, oh, he directed that, is probably the most interesting thing about the fucking movie here. Also, some other familiar faces in here. There's, I believe, the main Nazi bad guy in this one. It pops up in Kelly's Heroes. He has that weird, odd face on. And, of course, Uday Kier stars in this one, and he's basically kind of like retreading the character he played in Mark of the Devil, where he's like, I am on this side, but I fell in love with a woman and I'm trying to protect her. It's kind of like that the entire movie with Uday Kier in here. I love Uday Kier, of course. Blood for Dracula, Flesh for Frankenstein, Blade, a million fucking movies, right? Uday Kier's in everything. Always delivers, always crazy actor, very intense eyes. But this one follows a story of, I don't know what island they're on, but there's a lot of kind of Asian women that are being held hostage, forced to work here, and there's like 5 or 6. There's only like 6 of these people holding these people hostage, and like there's like 50 girls. You're like, what the fuck is going on, man? Like, and these guys all seem like complete and utter fucking morons. But there's also a woman running around called Olga. She's very much like Ilsa, except she's a little nicer than Ilsa, but she's definitely after sex. So we have Olga, not Ilsa. No lawsuits here. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Of course, Uday Kier has a love interest, and of course, he's going to try to break her out of Blood Plantation. This movie is one of the most illogical fucking scripts I've ever seen, and I don't know if it's a dubbing issue. This is in English or German. You can watch both. Both versions are out there, but it's just so fucking stupid, right? So there's like 5 guys, and they have some people, natives on the land too, that are Asian guys that work there, and they're kind of like sleazy pieces of shit. And also we have some small people there. I don't know why they're there, just basically entertainment for the main Nazi. They seem to run around, and there's some weird humorous kind of exploitative moments with them, including where one starts groping the other one when he gets turned on by people having sex, and very weird. I don't know if that's a fetish to check off on something like that. Short people molestation voyeurism watching. I don't fucking know. It's real weird. But a lot of the bad guys are complete doofuses, and it's just some of the shit that happens makes absolutely no logical sense. But you're not watching Escape from Blood Plantation for logical sense. You're watching it for the sleaze and the exploitation and the ridiculousness. And it delivers on those fronts. But there's just some moments where I just caught myself being so aggravated. It's like, we killed all these guys, but we're going to let the guard who's completely shit-faced drunk live? Even though we could easily kill him, take his one gun. And there's also a scene where we learn that one of the characters seems to have supernatural ability through like some sort of witchcraft, where he can like basically put people to sleep. And we're making these elaborate plans to escape. Just put them all to fucking sleep and leave. Or you have so many chances to kill these bad guys, and there's only like 5 of them. Kurt Rabe actually plays one himself, and he plays this character who's like a homosexual guard who makes all the native men sleep with him, and he refers to himself as like a Greek kind of character, and he ends up having a pretty good demise. Overall, this movie's really just poorly scripted. It probably didn't even have a script, but none of it really seems to make any fucking sense. It's illogical. It's very illogical, but it's so like stupid to even judge it, right? We're just sitting here to be like, yeah, Escape from Blood Plantation. It just doesn't make any sense. Like, of course it doesn't make any sense, because everybody there isn't there to have it make sense. They're there to see some sleaze, some mean-spiritedness, some Uday Kier, possibly. It's a bizarre film. Kurt Rabe never directed another movie himself. I think he ended up finishing a documentary, and he was dying of HIV at the time and ended up finishing that. I've not seen that. Actually didn't know how he passed away. I probably did at one point point, but looking it up when I was talking about this movie, I was like, oh, that's very sad. There's two back-to-back actors from last week as well. Somebody passed away from HIV, but he's an interesting actor. Definitely had a screen presence, and he's much better in Tenderness of the Wolves. I would recommend that. In fact, just watch Tenderness of the Wolves and Mark of the Devil, and skip this one, or maybe watch an Ilsa movie. It's not horrible. It's got some entertaining qualities about it. One of the bad guys, he gets bit by a poisonous spider, and they suck the poison out right, but the eggs are still in his skin, and his death and his constant building of it on his face is kind of fun. Overall, it's okay. I would slight recommend Escape from Blood Plantation. Okay, this is going to be a super quick one here, and this is an incomplete fan film made from 1981, but it was released till 83. I don't know when the fucking date is, but it's listed as 83, and this is Godzilla vs. the Wolfman. That's right. You're thinking, Godzilla's beating them all. Why hasn't he fought the Wolfman? Some other fan was thinking that too. And this is it. So this movie is not completed. The AI subtitles were not very good. There's a couple versions I've seen pop out. One where it's 20 minutes, 26 minutes, and then some making behind the scenes. And one that's 40 minutes. They don't seem to have all the same footage in it. But essentially what I can grasp from here is that this guy is turned into a werewolf from some Egyptian-style supernatural elements. He grows big. At first he's black, but then when he gets giant, he looks like an owl rabbit, but he looks pretty damn cool at the same time. Godzilla sometimes looks cool, sometimes looks like a rubber piece of shit puppet. Sometimes Godzilla looks like that in the other movies too, but they fight. The military's after him. There seems to be some subplot with some criminal activity in the beginning of the film. I don't know where that goes. No, I don't know where any of it goes. That the idea that this fucking thing even exists is crazy to me, right? I know that they tried to do a Godzilla vs. Frankenstein style, but it ended up turning like War of the Gargantuans or Baragon. I can't remember which. But this is super bizarre. I'm not a Godzilla expert, but I definitely had to watch the freaking movie called Godzilla vs. the Wolfman. It's weird. It's super bizarre. I can't help but think of Ralph from Rampage, but it's not great. It's interesting enough that it even fucking exists. And the werewolf looks cool. Fighting Godzilla giant is pretty cool. He gets hit with some lasers, the werewolf, and there's some fighting. The Wolfman picks him up over his head, which is also cool. I can't really speak of it, right? Because there's no subtitles. It's not complete. It jumps in from one scene to another. So overall, it's a bizarre kind of experience. But you have to check it out if you're a Godzilla fan or just the idea of this weird one-off fan film that was made. I doubt they made any money from it, and I don't know how many people actually worked on this, went on to do other things. I know I've read somewhere that they did, but I couldn't really feel what the director actually did anything else. It definitely wasn't in directing, but that's Godzilla vs. the Wolfman. Okay, last but certainly not least is the Patreon pick here, and this is Buffy, the Vampire Slayer. Is this one from 92? I remember when Buffy came out. I saw this right when it came out pretty much and always enjoyed it. It's a super fun movie. Christy Swanson stars as Buffy the Vampire Slayer. We also got Luke Perry in here, Donald Sutherland, Paul Rubens. Such a good cast in here. You also notice Hilary Swank is in here. Sasha Jensen pops up in here. And a bunch of small roles, other characters like you have Ben Affleck in a tiny role. You have Thomas Jane in a tiny role. You have... David Arquette in a pretty sizable role. Alexis Arquette at the time in a tiny role. So many people popping up in this one. And this definitely reminds me of a little bit of Salem's Lot, a little bit of Lost Boys. Kind of mix it together, make it incredibly light, make it incredibly self-aware. And I don't even want to call it a parody. It's definitely satirical in a lot of ways, where it's definitely playing on that high school mentality where Buffy is this cheerleader. And basically throughout the times of history, Donald Sutherland and her, basically the same kind of people, reincarnated, if you will, have to carry out this whole entire thing. And I forgot, I buried one of the leads. Rutger Hauer plays the main vampire, so you gotta love that. But over the years, of course, Donald Sutherland has to find the Vampire Slayer and tell her, you're the Vampire Slayer, you must stand up to the evil vampires and break this kind of loop, kind of curse thing. This was such a popular movie that it inspired a huge miniseries, an entire television series where we have Sarah Michelle Gellar playing Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and we had spin-offs of that, like Angel and all sorts of things of that nature. Now, I must admit that I never really got into the television stuff, but I've always had a fondness, and I've always enjoyed this movie. My next door neighbor growing up, she loved Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I'd probably make her watch all these horror gore movies like Dead Alive and shit, and she'd be like, watch Buffy, and I watched it a couple times. So I always enjoyed it. Like I said, it's very cute, it's very fun, it's very clever. A lot of the dialogue is absolutely hilarious when you look at it through, like, you got to take it through the eyes of, like a 16-year-old girl. Like, she's, I don't want to save the world, I want to just cheerlead and do this kind of stuff. But it's a really fun movie. A lot of the dialogue is funny, and it kind of is the same vein of like My Boyfriend's Back, which I feel like that one's just a little bit, I don't want to say more self-aware, because they're definitely in the same vein. But I think this is fun. I think this is clever. I think it's a great gateway horror movie. I do think the first 2 acts flow a little bit better. But we do have the nice little siege at the very end here. It lives freely from vampire movies. It has a ton of fun, and the acting is fun. The people know what they're in. God bless Donald Sutherland. He's great in it. And Christy Swanson's a good lead. Candy Clark is in here too, which I love as the mother. She's this mother, and a lot of the dialogue that she has is really great, especially with Christy Swanson, where she'll be like, do you know what time it is? Like, she walks in late, and she's like, yeah, it's 10. Good, my watch broke. Like, she just cares not what her daughter's doing at all, which plays for a nice little touch in here. I think this is a great fun. There's no special features on here, which is a bummer. This Blu-ray is out of print, so you'd have to pay a decent price, $40 for it, which is not worth it. I would wait. This is 20th Century Fox, so I feel like Disney should release this. Disney owns this. This is perfect, right? Just do it. Disney should release this. I feel like this would do well on Blu-ray again, or 4K or something of that nature. It's just a little like kind of 4-minute making of thing on here, but recommended. I think most people will enjoy this one. It's not overly gory or anything like that. It's definitely self-aware and fun and cute, but just seeing all the people in this movie in small little roles was great. Nice touch too. We even have a freaking kind of like a Teen Wolf scene, but not necessarily, right? We have a vampire playing basketball. Hey, get out of very similar to, Michael J. Fox and Teen Wolf. I would recommend Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Glad somebody picked it. It's a movie that I've always enjoyed, and it's light, it's fun, it's an easy watch. And sometimes you need easy watches when you watch Lucille Hadlovich, which is not an insult, but like sometimes you got to have a mixture of me, right? I'm all very schizophrenic watcher. So I'll be like, I got to watch something silly, got to watch something serious, got to watch something dark, got to watch something light. It's a nice mixture. I have a wide palette of what I like and enjoy, and I have my favorites, of course. But yeah, good fun stuff. Recommend it. Let's get into these questions and comments and concerns. Action Papa, I think they messed up the cover print on Hunter's Blood. It's so faded, and if you put it next to the previous Red Shirt release of Trick or Treat, you'll see a stark difference, sadly. Other than that, it's a great release. 100% agree. Beyond Sour's Ground, I'll take Trumpy over E.T. any day, referring to the extraterrestrial film by Mrparka Simone. Mark, I need to blind buy Hunter's Blood. Yes, you do. It's great. Ken Coakley, I watched a couple of movies on Arrow TV. This is last week's comment that I hadn't seen in a while. One of them was Massacre at Central High. Forgot how good it really was. Robert Carradine was a favorite of the Carradines. I first liked him when I watched Pom Pom Girls on pay TV in '79. I thought he was Keith through the whole movie. He was also the reason why I went to see Revenge of the Nerds the day it opened. I also like Andrew Stevens because of the Boys at Company C. I also forgot that Dana Kimmel, Friday the 13th, the final chapter, played the girl that the two main characters were vying for. The movie was kind of cheesy in parts. I went from jaw-dropping when Andrew Stevens caught his best friend skinny dipping with Stevens to Stevens' girl, to laughing my ass off when she confessed it to Stevens, then said, "But we didn't make love because he wouldn't do that to you." Yeah, right. He sees a naked girl with a rockin' body and he doesn't do anything. Who knows? I like the kills, though. The way the nerds turn on each other was kind of cheesy as well. Robert Carradine was the most realistic character, living the dream of the two gals at once, including Rainbow Smith, also from Pom Pom Girls, who died tragically young, if I'm not mistaken. That was also one of my favorite kills. My absolute favorite was the diving board scene. That scene came straight out of Looney Tunes or Tom and Jerry. The other movie was the Jess Franco epic Dracula Prisoner of Frankenstein. It was English dub, but it didn't bother me at all. I swear I thought Paul Nash was going to be the Wolfman. Film had atmosphere of a Nashy film, but it ran on its own two legs. I admit that I'm not only a monster kid, but I also love the Monster Rally films, especially ones that Universal released in the 40s. Sure, the bat looked like it was made of rubber, but that's because it was. I love the soundtrack. It was similar to the Blind Dead films. That is certainly something missing in horror today. Eerie soundtracks. I agree. Soundtracks definitely took a hit, or even songs made for movies aren't really there. I will say this about the Massacre at Central High, nerds turning on each other. I think that's kind of the whole point of the movie, right? That's, if somebody takes over, they'll turn on each other, and whoever has that power. It's a dark movie if you look at that, right? Where the nerds turn on each other too, and there's just like, you realize it's not necessarily, it's human nature to do that kind of stuff. It is dark. Maybe the way it was done is not the best. I don't remember it, but I don't have any complaints. It does have some cheesy qualities. Love the movie though. KNJHorror.com. Awesome. We have recently shown the horror of it all on IG. Posted it for National Classic Movie Day. As a matter of fact, nice compilation of classics. Thank you for mentioning it. Awesome. Thanks for commenting. Good movie. Nick from Flanders. I love the first Mortal Kombat. Robin Shaw, Christopher Lambert, Kerry Hiroyuki Tagawa. What a cast. Then they made another one. He's angry. I must confess to feeling a little bit disappointed at the time. They had good actors too. I always enjoyed the sinister quality of Mr. Brian Thompson back from when he appeared as a multiple creatures on Buffy. He wasn't given much to work with here. Other performances, yikes, Community Theater vibes for sure. I feel you there. And he says, I'd check out both Obsession and Backrooms, though critics look down their powdered noses at it and consider it trite, boring Gen Z YouTuber crap. I think you're doing pretty well financially. Questions. How familiar were you with the whole creepypasta phenomenon? I had heard of it. It was not something I was super in-depth with. I've not heard of the Backrooms one, so if you were a Mortal Kombat character, what would your powers be? I don't know. I don't. Somebody else will have to pick that. I'd probably just have good endurance. Would you agree that Stuart Gordon adapted to Lovecraft the best? Because I really like Richard Stanley's Color Out of Space. I hope he does more Lovecraft movies, HP movies. Truth be told, his movies were... Stuart Gordon's Lovecraft movies were completely different than Lovecraft in a lot of aspects. He always said, like, the sexuality was hidden in his film, so he made it overt. I don't know if he's the best at it. He's one of the all-time... He makes some of the all-time best movies that are adapted from Lovecraft stuff. I don't know who's technically the best at it. I think some of Fulci's stuff hit it, like The Beyond or City of the Living Dead, or even House by the Cemetery, I think have those Lovecraftian touches. I think that Carpenter hit it, too, with In the Mouth of Madness and The Thing and Prince of Darkness. I think those touch on it. I think that Color Out of Space is a good one. The Richard Stanley film. I think a lot of them touch on it, and I think Stuart Gordon's touch on it. I guess they all have different aspects and things of that nature. And I remember there being, I think, a black and white one that was made in like 2005 that touched on a lot of the Lovecraft aspects. That was pretty damn good about it too. It depends what people look for in Lovecraft. I know they want these unspeakable monsters, but I think an unreliable narrator is one of the things that I look for in a Lovecraft movie, right? The narrator is unreliable. Somebody is reading you're reading a story about somebody reading a book that's going crazy from reading that book. You don't know if the character reading the book is crazy or the person who wrote the book is crazy, but damn well you know that something is off. I think unreliable narrator is one of the number one things that you would need. I think Color Out of Space did it really well when you found Tommy Chong dead and you heard his recording and you saw his dead body and it goes over that is a very Lovecraftian thing to me. So I think even Evil Dead, the recording, not the whole movie itself is not very Lovecraftian, but the recording of the listening to the recording feels very Lovecraftian to me. Then he says, till next time, God willing, keep treating us to the sexy tank tops. PS, charge us more for wearing them. It's just how I dress, guys. YouTube is so cool. I don't think you have enough movies. Me either. Let's buy some more. A Good Fox 1, Lucille Hadlovich has a partnership with Gaspar Noé and a production company, explains of the darkness and abstraction, for sure. Good to know. Ken Coakley, I watched Mortal Kombat Annihilation with the hopes that both films would grow on me. Unfortunately, they didn't. They both came across as kids' movies, which wouldn't have bothered me if the movies hadn't been based on extremely violent and gory video games. At least Resident Evil was rated R and had zombies in them. In Mortal Kombat, they had romance between Johnny Cage and Sonya Blade. They took to each other faster than Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet in Titanic, and it took them a weekend. And like in Titanic, her man died in Annihilation, but Cage's death wasn't Blade's fault. There was room for the floating door for both, but Rose was greedy and wanted the door to herself. That bitch, LOL. Of course, Christopher Lambert, pronounced Lambert. I think I get that one right. But like his production company, played Raiden in the first film. All I could think about was his facial resemblance to Thomas Jane. In Annihilation, he was replaced by James Remar, who seemed miscast, and I love James Remar. In the first film with Sub-Zero, and Scorpion were introduced, they look like villains in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon. The whole movie played like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon, and Annihilation seemed like Power Rangers. I agree with that, the Power Rangers thing at least. Now the good movies. I like Demons of Ludlow, even though the acting was crude, but I like the rotting skin of the ghost. I also love the FX, including the flames of hell inside the medicine chest. I think I had it on Blu-ray from Vinegar Syndrome when they had it, the double and triple disc in the plain beige boxes. It took me at least 9 or 10 tries to watch the film. I either fell asleep or my phone, which was a Roku controller app, kept switching to other platforms. One of the times I woke up to Brotherhood of Satan, thinking it was still Demons of Ludlow. I was wondering what Strother Moot was doing in Demons of Ludlow. Finally, I watched Wake in Fear. I love the color process as well as the cinematography. As an animal lover, I didn't appreciate the kangaroos being hunted. I did like Donald Pleasance's unhinged performance. I also wondered if Pleasance ever had hair, right? I don't think I've ever seen him with hair. James is rad. Where did you get this tank? Last week, I do not know. That tank is very, very old. Probably 8 years old. K&J Horror. We have recently shown the horror of it all on IG. Oh, I already got that one. Okay, so I guess we're going to get into this update, guys. That's right. All right, let's hop into this update. First up is from TerraVision, Shoestring Slashers Part 2. I don't know if I like that cover art. I like the hard box, though. So we got 3 movies in here. I have the first volume. We have Blood Symbol, which is by the guy who did End of the Line and Slashers. Like those movies a lot. Need to see Blood Symbol. Night of the Dribbler, which Code Red put out years ago, and Bloodspell, which I believe was a Troma release here. We got 3 titles, all nice cases there. So yeah, look forward to checking those out. And then we have their exclusive one that was kind of like a hidden title, Dark Harvest. Death reaps what you sow. This one I don't know if I've ever seen it. I think I had a DVD of it from Intervision, if that makes any sense. But yeah. Looks like fun, possibly SOV crap. I'm not 100%. Let's get into the Vinegar Syndrome order here. Oh, we got a little poster as well. I guess we'll start with the Vinegar Syndrome stuff itself. First up is the 90s version of Nightwatch. It's a remake. It has Ian McGregor in it, Josh Brolin, Patricia Arquette, Nick Nolte. Great cast here by the same director. I've seen the 94 movie, and it's a pretty damn good movie. I've seen the sequel to that, so I've not seen this one, though. So I'll definitely check that out eventually. Then next up we have Macabre, directed by Lamberto Bava, his directorial debut in 1980, same year that his father passed away, unfortunately. This is a pretty cool movie, interesting movie. A lot of there's a line in this movie that a lot of people laugh at when she goes completely over the top. Unhinged performance for sure. And then we have the Mangler, directed by Tobe Hooper, 95. This movie, I don't hate it as much as other people. I don't absolutely love it either. Really bizarre film based on the Stephen King source material, of course. The weird, strange story, but it's got a good cast. I mean, Robert Englund and Ted Levine. Ted Levine's good in this. So is Robert Englund. Looks like he's in Dick Tracy makeup. Bizarre film, 4K of there. And then we have, a great release here, probably the best of the bunch, Human Lanterns. So 1982 classic Shaw Brothers flick here. What's really cool about this one is they uncovered a different version, longer, gorier, and another version with different ending too. So versions that no one's ever really seen. So amazing. 88 Films has the Blu-ray, but now we have this 4K with uncut footage and stuff like that. Love the Shaw Brothers. Love that movie for sure. Speaking of Shaw, we have another one here, Killers on Wheels, which I've always wanted to see. I hear it's pretty damn good. Not seen it, but I know that there's a special feature commentary by Arnie Venema, or at least he's involved with the special features. Looking forward to checking it out. Heard good things about this one, too. Heard it's pretty wild and weird, but I can't wait. Love the Shaw Brothers stuff. And then next up, we have Without Apparent Motive. Of course, it has my favorite actor. I can never say his fucking name, Jean-Louis Truganot. That's probably not right. But this I know is a thriller of sorts, and I've heard good things about it, but Without Apparent Motive, this actor right here, can never say his name. He's in every French movie I've ever seen. But looking forward to that. That's 4K as well, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe not. I don't know. And then we have the Lustful Turk. Is this the distro picks here? Yeah, Lustful Turk, and I think there's a second movie in here as well. And The Joys of Jeezebel. That's a great cover. Those are cool covers, honestly. Trippy. And then we have another volume here, Volume 4 of Hisayasu Sato. I still need to watch 3 for you guys and cover it. Love Hisayasu Sato. Excited. This pink line here. I look forward to getting all his movies because I love this director. But we have Soft Skin, Save the Last Dance for Me, Survey Map of a Paradise Lost. I'd love to see some Koji Wakamatsu as well from this line, if that's possible. That'd be great. And then we have the Kani film here, and this is My Name... what is this one called? My Name Ain't Susie. Shaw Brothers as well. Not seen this one, but I like Connie a lot. I like what they do. So there we go. We have another one here. New Love in Tokyo from Connie as well. Now that's a good cover. The condom balloons. Priceless, right? Looks like some BDSM stuff going on in there. And then we have one from Altered Innocence. This is not Altered Innocence. This is Film Movement. Sorry about that. The logo threw me off for a second. This is the Roman Porno Reboot Collection, Volume 1. And this has got anti-porno, aroused by... what is that? Gimo Pedis, Dawn of the Felines, Wet Woman in the Wind, and White Lily. So a bunch of movies here. Definitely pick that kind of stuff up when it's released. And then we have an upgrade to Ninja Zombie. He Won't Stay Dead. I didn't order fast enough to get the slipcover. I don't think I'll be able to live with myself from Bleeding Skull. And I assume this is an outrageous movie. I had the old DVD, but now fucking zombie with a gun on the back looks so stupid. I love it. It's probably not great. I don't know if I'll love it, but I may enjoy it. It's like I'm going to watch it. I had to have it. And then we got Jesse Franco here. This is Jess Franco's Rolls Royce Baby. And I didn't pick up the new Delirium because there's nudity in here. I'm going to probably, if you see a weird editor blurred, so there we go, pops back up, and you're still going to hear the dialogue. I'm not blurring a cartoon but Rolls Royce Baby. So the thing about this Delirium, this is like the Full Moon line that they're doing, but I didn't pick up the next one because it's not Jess Franco. And I know this is going to sound bad, but I'm a Jess Franco guy. Lena Romay. I'm not going to get the other stuff because it doesn't interest me as much as the Franco, unless it's a director that I really like, but... So, and then the last, but certainly not least, from EGFA Films, we have Voices of Desire, Fly Now, Pay Later. And that's the second film. Yeah, second hit, Fly Now, Pay Later. If it's such a hit, how come I ain't never heard of it? Just kidding. But, yeah, so this is EGFA, and that is the update. Hopefully some good stuff in there you guys enjoy, but we're out of here. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching, and as always, have a good one.